Imagine America in the mid-19th century. A country of vast spaces and great dreams. A land where people came from all over the world, searching for freedom and a better life. But inside this nation, a dangerous fracture already lived. The North and the South, two different worlds. In the North, railroads, factories, workshops. Progress marched through the cities, the industrial era was being born. People there believed the future meant development, new machines, new ideas. And in the South, enormous plantations, fields of cotton and tobacco. The land brought wealth, but at a terrible cost. Millions of people worked in chains. Slavery was the foundation of the Southern economy. Imagine this paradox: a country that called itself the land of freedom was, in reality, a place where freedom did not exist for many. A land where some proclaimed equality and human rights, while others lived by exploiting the enslavement of others. And in this very moment, a man appeared who would change the course of history. His name was Abraham Lincoln. A tall, thin man in a simple black suit. Sad but determined eyes. An unremarkable appearance, but words that could set hearts aflame. He did not come from a wealthy family, nor from a privileged class. His childhood passed in a wooden cabin. Imagine a boy sitting by the fire, reading books by the light of the flames, because his family could not afford candles. He dreamed of justice. And this dream made him who he became. When Lincoln entered politics, he knew a choice stood before him, a choice on which the fate of millions depended. Because slavery was not just an economic question. It was a wound tearing the nation apart. The North declared, slavery must end. The South cried, we will never give it up. And somewhere between these two worlds stood Lincoln. He understood, if he rose against slavery, war would begin. If he stayed silent, millions of people would remain in darkness, without freedom, for generations to come. It was a moment when all of America held its breath. What would the new president choose? Now imagine, he chose silence. He did not sign the Emancipation Proclamation. He did not take that legendary step. And our story begins right here. Not where you are used to reading in textbooks, but in another reality. A reality where America chose to leave things as they were. Imagine, months passed after Abraham Lincoln was elected president. But instead of lifting his pen and signing the Proclamation of Emancipation, he remained silent. In the White House office, there was no historic document. No lines that would change millions of lives. Only silence and hesitation. What happens next? America continued to live in division. The North looked at the South with anger. How much longer will this last? And the South laughed in reply, no one will ever force us to give up our way of life. Slavery remained. Millions woke at dawn to work the plantations. They knew no other fate. For them, freedom did not exist. They waited, and they would wait in vain. And the world watched. Europe, which had already abolished slavery, looked at America with condemnation. You call yourselves the land of democracy? You call yourselves a nation of freedom? Where is that freedom? And here the main point begins. Without abolishing slavery, America could not remain united. The tension between North and South became unbearable. Imagine a country cracking apart like a dry branch. Scenario 1. North and South finally separate. On the world map appear two states. The United States in the north, democratic and industrial. And the Confederacy in the south, with slavery lasting for decades. Scenario 2. America formally remains one, but the fracture only deepens. Conflicts flare again and again, every decade. No reconciliation, no trust. And in either scenario, the American dream, freedom and equality for all, becomes an empty phrase. For what kind of nation can build its wealth on the enslavement of others? Now imagine the 21st century. An America that did not abolish slavery in the 19th. Would it have become a world leader? Would it have inspired millions around the globe? Would we today call it a symbol of freedom? The answer is obvious. Picture an ordinary morning on a southern plantation. The sun barely rising, yet hundreds already in the fields. Some of them, children, barely 10 years old. And instead of school, they held hoes in their hands. Among them, a boy named Sam. He was 12. He dreamed of learning to read. His heart beat faster every time he saw white children with books. But for him, the road to knowledge was closed. Because he was born a slave. Beside him, a girl named Rose. She sang softly under her breath an old tune her grandmother taught her. Her song sounded like a prayer. She dreamed only of one thing, that one day her children would be free. But in this alternative America, that dream was just an echo dissolving into the air. And it was not only the enslaved who suffered. Imagine a poor white farmer in the South. He could barely survive himself. But all the land around him belonged to rich planters who used slave labor. He knew he had no chance to compete. He too became a prisoner of the very system that crushed him. Now move to the North. There, a young man named James listened to the news that slavery still existed. He studied at university, read books about freedom and democracy. And every time he heard about Southern plantations, his blood boiled with outrage. He asked himself, "Is this truly my country? Will we allow this to go on forever?" And the world? In Europe, slavery was long gone. In the newspapers of Paris and London, they wrote about America. Land of opportunity? Or land of chains? The reputation of the United States plummeted. And even those who once dreamed of emigrating to the New World now hesitated. Do I really want to live where some men buy and sell others? In this alternate history, there was no example of Lincoln's courage. No symbol of the fight for freedom. Only silence, and the continuation of suffering. And here arises the central question. How many generations would have to pass before America finally understood slavery could not be preserved forever? And now we reach the moment of truth. Imagine the America we saw in the previous chapters, divided, unjust, silent. Millions suffering, simple families living in fear, the country losing the world's respect. Now return to Lincoln. His greatness was not in his suit or height, not in speeches or titles. He understood one simple truth: one decision can change the fate of a nation. And he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. It was not just a document. It was an act of hope, an act of courage. It was a step that placed human dignity above economic profit and the fear of war. Imagine the reaction at the time: fear and hatred mixed with hope. Those who had suffered for decades felt freedom for the first time. And even those who feared change realized, without this step, the nation had no future. And the world? The world began to see America not as a country of hypocrisy, but as a land of opportunity. Not a country of division, but a nation capable of changing and fighting for justice. This reminds us even today, even in the most difficult circumstances, one right decision can change everything. One decision can save millions. One decision can leave a mark for centuries. Imagine once more, what if Lincoln had not signed that document? The world would be entirely different. But he did sign. And because of that, we live in a nation where the idea of freedom and equality, though imperfect, still exists. Abraham Lincoln was not just a president. He was a symbol that even an ordinary man can become a hero if he is not afraid to make the right choice. And though he did not live to see the time when America fully reunited after the war, his step changed the nation's fate forever. The story of Lincoln is a reminder. Great change begins with one brave decision.